Hello everyone and welcome. Nespresso has recently come out with a new addition to their Master Origin series. It's a coffee coming from Nicaragua in a region called La Cumplida. There are about 20 farms that contribute their beans to this limited release, and they're actually using the same variety as the Nicaraguan Capsule from their permanent collection. The major difference though is that this special release was done with natural processing and fermentation. This means two things. First, the natural part is where the coffee cherries are picked and laid out to dry with the cherries left intact, as opposed to a wash process coffee where the cherry would be removed, the beans would be washed, and then the beans themselves would be left out to dry. Leaving the cherry around the beans as they're left to dry can often produce some fairly noticeable dark fruit notes, and they can be some of my favorite coffees. People often describe naturals as having a bit of a funky fermented note and a certain wine-like quality. With fermentation, they end up spraying the beans with a natural yeast and allow it to ferment for 72 hours. The farmers carefully monitor the temperature and humidity during this time, and it's meant to add an extra layer of complexity to the flavor of your coffee. As sugars break down from the yeast, acidity begins to increase and the beans take on a more refined taste with stronger fruit notes. This is definitely a unique coffee for an espresso, and I think it's time that we give it a taste. I have both versions with me as this was made available on the Classic line as well as the Vertuo line. I'm going to taste both, give some thoughts, and also compare between the machines to see if there's any difference. So while the shots are pulling here, it might be worth noting that the Vertuo capsule is double the size of the Classic capsule. The Classic creates a 40 milliliter espresso and the Vertuo creates an 80 milliliter espresso. It's a double espresso in their terms. But there's more coffee in the Vertuo capsule, so as long as the ratio of coffee to water is approximately the same, they should taste fairly similar. One thing I have noticed with the Vertuo machine is that it creates a lot more foam or crema. It could be that the Vertuo capsule is more fresh, it might have more CO2, but I think that it's more likely that it's just the difference between how these machines brew. And that's something I'll probably get into in another video. All right, so we've got our two shots, and one thing you might also notice is that I've scooped off some of the foam that was on the Vertuo capsule. The foam that comes from these machines, or any espresso, is honestly not that good of a taste. It is essentially just carbon dioxide holding on to coffee oils, particles, and it's generally just bitter and astringent, and I'd rather just taste the coffee. So one of the first things that really surprised me by this coffee was the smell. I didn't know about the natural processing and the fermentation until I pulled the shot and tasted it and smelled it, and I was so surprised at how fruity and how dense and sort of syrupy that aroma was. It's kind of like dark sour cherries, and there's actually, this is the one point where I can start to see the difference between the two machines. This has a lighter and a little bit more floral and aromatic nose, and the Vertuo capsule is still really nice, but it's a little heavier, a little bit darker almost. And I'm getting still that cherry note, but a little bit of chocolate. Let's give it a taste. And what's so interesting about this coffee is that they are actually fairly dark roasted. It's typical for an espresso, and they do say it on their website about this coffee. But even through that darkness, you get such a vibrant cherry berry flavor. It's very interesting and unique for an espresso. I've actually been sort of seeking that flavor profile. I've been looking to some of the lighter intensity coffees to try and get that, but this has it right away. All of those notes are still there. I'm getting a little bit more intensity, a little more darkness, and a bit more bitterness from the Vertuo, but there's a strength there that I think someone who likes a thicker espresso would enjoy. I think this is a little bit more watery on the Classic side, but that sort of cherry chocolate note really comes through again in the taste. Now that I've gone back to the Classic, I think I like it more. It's lighter, fruitier, kind of like a Swedish berry taste, and it has a floral note to it that I can't quite pinpoint, but it's there. So this is very surprising for Nespresso. I really hope that they do more coffees like this. I really like it. It's one of my favorite that I've had in a while, and I think that you'll enjoy it. If you drink the straight espresso or if you mix it with something, I'm sure it would taste great with just a little bit of milk, but I would encourage you to try it as close to straight as possible. This sort of experimentation of the natural process and the fermentation, I think it's really exciting. I think it's really cool that Nespresso is doing that with Nicaraguan farmers and coffee experts over there. I hope that this was fun and informative, and let me know if you want me to taste more of these and give you my thoughts and opinions. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already, as it really helps me out, and I can't wait to see you guys again in the next video. Have a great day.